I'm Sai, and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. On the channel, we have podcasts and content and all sorts of subjects: music, wrestling, TV, films, conspiracy theories, serial killers, and a whole lot more. You can find the video versions at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation and audio versions at all the usual podcasting networks. I am joined today by British independent wrestler, Mr. Kade Callous. Welcome, Kade.
Sorry, thanks for having me on.
No worries, buddy. So this time we decided we were going to turn your camera off because we had a few issues last time just with it clicking in and out. So we're away to go. And it's been an eventful couple of weeks in the wrestling world, and it's only going to get busier over the next few weeks. With everything that's going on. We're going to have a little Wednesday Night Wars thing going on, which is going to be interesting. So let's start with you. I've seen a couple of your posts recently on social media, and you seem to be getting very motivated. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I guess there's been a subtle shift in my mindset. In that for a long time I've been somebody with a day job that wrestles as well, whereas now I'm starting to feel like a wrestler that also has a day job. So wrestling's very much at the forefront of my thinking now. In my spare time, I'm watching wrestling, I'm consuming wrestling, I'm thinking wrestling. So yeah, it's quite exciting. I feel like I did maybe 8-9 years ago, and I feel really enthused with it. I guess the frustrating thing is that I've pulled my neck, and that seems to be reoccurring now. So it's not the best time for this to happen. But I guess at the same time, absence makes the heart grow fond, and the time where I'm not able to head down to training and try things out that I'm thinking, it's just making me want it more and more and more. So it's a really exciting time to be involved in wrestling. It's a really exciting time to be me. So
Yeah.
and I guess I'm learning social media as well, slowly but surely. That's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, for those who don't know, you had a WWE tryout a few years back. So it'd be nice if you could get back up to there and get your foot in the door, as it were, because obviously just recently we had the NXT Cardiff event and the TV tapings which followed, which was obviously, it was a big thing for me personally, just because you don't really see that much WWE style wrestling in Cardiff. And if they do, it's their house shows. They never have TV tapings or anything like that, because if they come to the UK, they tend to tape their Raw and SmackDown in London or in Manchester. So it was really cool to see it in Cardiff.
Takeover was a pay-per-view quality show. It was.
Oh, it's awesome.
It was every match was of the highest caliber. It was things that you don't expect to see in in the UK, in the Motorpoint Arena in Cardiff, and you've got guys putting on a fantastic show. You've got some of the best talent from Britain, some of the best talent from all over the world. When you look, Cesaro was there, and everybody put on an absolutely fabulous show. And it was a fantastic card. Don't get me wrong. I was a little bit disappointed. Originally on the day of the show, maybe a week before the show, I was due to do 2 shows that day. So no problem. I'm going to be distracted. I'm not going to get a ticket because I'm not going to be available. We'll just carry on with the Kade Callous wrestling. And then those shows got postponed and cancelled, and then suddenly it's just me and the TV, and I'm watching NXT UK Takeover, watching many of my peers absolutely smash it, which was fantastic. And I suppose the truth is, with the effort that I've put into pro wrestling over the last 8 years, I didn't deserve to have been there, right? But at the same time, I really, really wanted to be there. It's one of them.
Yeah, I think, and don't get me wrong, like you've got the character and the ability and the everything to go with it, which could mean that you could be there. It's just the way things have gone over the last couple of years. Maybe, yeah,
No,
like you say, you haven't managed to sort of get to that level. But I mean, I do believe, and I've said this to you before, like off air and privately, that I believe that you'll be able to get there. And I feel like recently you've had that sort of focus and motivation back. That maybe that could be the route. And
absolutely. In 2011, when I had my trial, I was asked to come back in 6 months, and then the day, maybe 2 days before I was due to come back, they sacked the scout, the guy that scouted me, and the guy that did all the scouting at the time, Drew McDonald. So suddenly, my contacts with the WWE had gone, and honestly, it knocked me for six. I just thought, oh, so that's wrestling over with then.
mm-hmm.
That's that. Because a lot of guys love to wrestle, and don't get me wrong, I do. But my goal had always been the WWE. My
Yeah.
goal had always been that's the wrestling I like. That's where I want to be. And then when that was when the rug was pulled from under me, I just thought, oh, maybe it wasn't meant to be then. So that was where I was. It sapped my motivation, and I guess I just lost interest for a while. But back now, I'm back at it. And over the past 8 years, I don't think I've put on poor wrestling shows. I just haven't put the work in outside of the wrestling shows. I haven't put the thought into it outside of those wrestling shows. So although I don't think I shortchanged anyone during the past 8 years, I don't think I've quite pushed myself like I could have.
Yeah, and I think like when you think back, we talked about when you came on before the Lembic Opec angle, and like you had the video, didn't you, and the like the promo video and stuff, which was sort of led into that, and it was really creative and quite cool. And obviously, we haven't seen as many of them over the last few years. But then recently, you've been putting out videos on social media. You've been running competitions for your t-shirts, new t-shirts, which you can buy at I think it's Pro Wrestling Cartel, Big Cartel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kadecallous.bigcartel.com. There's links to it from my social media, which is all at Kade Callous. And yeah, just getting into what wrestling is now. I mean, I suppose when I broke in, the internet was very new, and I never really capitalized on it. I wasn't quite sure how to use it. I mean, the truth is, when I'm out on a show, I'm very character driven, um, and translating that character that I put on in front of those hundreds of people to social media, I always found it difficult because it's always going to be quite incongruent, because the Kade Callous that I am on a show, to imagine that guy sat behind a computer typing on social media, that takes a big leap for me.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I thought, well, no, it takes away from my character, it takes away from the mystique. But at the same time, it's the way of the world now. So
Yeah, it's the thing is with social media and the internet now is you can get your name out and your videos out, your promo videos out, your matches out. They can be seen by people, all across the world in seconds. And I think if you look at just like what like the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega have done, or he'd say just the Young Bucks because obviously Kenny Omega was with New Japan, but like what they did, where Ring of Honor isn't really on in the UK unless you go searching for it on the Ring of Honor website. It's not on in TV here, so the only time people could really see it is via YouTube or if they're on a New Japan show. But yeah, they've made their money predominantly up until now from T-shirt sales and working and getting their name out on social media, and they've made a huge name for themselves, whereby they've now turned down the WWE and gone and done something, completely new on their own. And obviously it helps that they've got the backing of Tony Khan, who's involved with Fulham. His family owns Fulham FC in the Premier League. So they've got the financial backing to try and put something new and get it on TV. They got a massive TV deal in America. But for years they've used the internet very cleverly.
Yeah, the early adopters of anything like that are the ones that get the most success from it. I mean, you only have to look at Mark Andrews, circa 2012, 2013. That guy was editing music videos, making music videos, putting himself out there, creating content. And that was years ago. And I didn't understand it. My thoughts were, you're losing the essence of pro wrestling when you put together a music video, because it's just showing the moves, it's just showing the tricks, it's not showing the emotions that a match is supposed to evoke. But it
Yeah.
worked, and that's the way that wrestling was going at the time, and he was an early adopter of that, and he's got all the success from that. I guess the same with the Young Bucks. They've really capitalized on this whole YouTube thing, and they put out content, and they've created a buzz, and people are buying their shirts, and people are watching their product. And now they've helped create this AEW. So yeah, it's making the most of the avenues that are there. And although I haven't quite worked out how to make the most of it all yet, I'm gonna keep making content. I do pro wrestling how I think it should be done, and hopefully it'll get some interest. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's like it's just using all the tools that you've got available, whether it's internet, it's YouTube, it's Facebook, it's finding creative ways to enhance what you do and how you visualize your character and stuff. You can use whether it's a 30-second video clip, or clips of your matches, or clips of your feuds, whatever it may be. It's just using those tools to get your name out further. And obviously with the NXT UK, I think that's opened doors, and World of Sport to a lesser extent coming back, but that's opened doors for British wrestlers which weren't there. Like you talked about your sort of contact with the WWE when he left, you had sort of no contact or no way to sort of have a dialogue with them, whatever it may be. Whereas now with NXT UK, they're constantly putting on shows in the UK. They're constantly looking at independent promotions for new talent, or people who are making a name for themselves. They're constantly monitoring social media because especially now with AEW, AEW, all those guys have got their fingers on the pulse. Even guys like Jericho, the reason Jericho's been so successful over the years, because he constantly recreates himself. He constantly changes his character. He's up with what people want these days. He hasn't stayed the same and just rolled out the the kind of greatest hits from his Y2J character from 2000. He's constantly evolved and changed himself with what he thinks the fans will find entertaining. So there's more. There's WWE now have to be on the ball with signing new talent or finding new talent, because if they don't, those guys will. And then you've got other companies in America, whereas Ring of Honor and other sort of independent companies, who have obviously got to keep refilling their rosters, because their guys are going over to AEW or WWE or NXT UK. It's kind of never ending. But British wrestling at the moment is as big as it's been for years, haven't it?
There, aren't there? There are a lot of opportunities at the moment.
Absolutely.
And I mean, as you mentioned earlier, this new Wednesday Night War,
It's
exciting,
awesome.
exciting.
Especially for us in the UK, like AEW is on ITV4, which makes it so easy to access. Yes, it's on in the middle of the night, but it's going to be on the ITV player. You haven't got to purchase Sky Sports or BT Sport. You can just watch it on terrestrial TV, which I think is huge, just for wrestling fans in the UK, because we're conditioned that to watch WWE, you've got to kind of have Sky Sports. Obviously, with the WWE net,
that's where we of an older generation see it. But if you speak to your guys like your Pete Dunnes and your Mark Andrews, those guys were watching TNA because that was free on like Bravo or whatever. It was on the basic cable package.
Yeah.
So that was the wrestling that those guys were watching, and that's the wrestling that they're doing now. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
that kind
absolutely.
of that X Division style, where it wasn't about weight limits, it was about no limits, and it was about that cool style of wrestling that was hard hitting and high flying, and that's changed the business. I don't think enough. I don't think that we've realised that TNA's had such an impact on this generation of young pro wrestlers that are coming in and making waves.
Yeah, well, you look at how many guys in the WWE now who were in TNA in like the early 2000s. Like people slate TNA or Impact as it is now, and rightly so. They've made some terrible decisions over the years, and they've
But
shot
it
themselves in
lasted.
the foot over and over again. But that sort of, I think it was like 2002 to about 2006. TNA was the best wrestling on TV. They don't get enough credit for that period, but unfortunately, they did make a few, what should we say, indescribable decisions, and they shot themselves in the foot a bit now. And whereas they were the kind of the number two company in the US, particularly, but in the world to WWE, they've kind of slipped right down the pecking order. But you're right, guys like Pete Dunne, Mark Andrews, they would have been watching that because in the UK it was free to watch, whereas like I mentioned, you have to get Sky Sports to watch WWE. I've heard a few rumours that NXT UK, they're looking to move that from, like, it'll still be on the network, but they might put it on Fox Sports, which again is huge, in terms of getting more eyes on that product. And I think if they do put it on Fox Sports, I think they'll try and get it on a channel in the UK. I'm just not sure whether they'd have to put it on BT because that's where the Raw and SmackDown is going. But if we could get that on like a Channel 5 or a Channel 4, somewhere like that, that would be a big step again for British wrestling.
I mean, even if it was broadcast free on Sky Sport, on BT Sports YouTube channel, like they do the Champions League final,
Yeah.
there'd be more eyes on it and more people likely to buy the network if they love the product.
Yeah, and I think with the NXT UK, it did take a while once they started like the TV tapings. I feel like, particularly when they were showing it 2 hours every Wednesday on the network, I feel like it took a bit of time to get going. Because certainly, like those first few weeks, I wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought I was going to. But then, just as it went to an hour a week, and as they started to find their feet, and the wrestlers became more comfortable, I feel like, and now I think it's really, really starting to get going. Like from Takeover Blackpool to Takeover Cardiff, the TV was better, the matches were better, the characters felt more rounded, and as if they had, found their feet and got used to, what they wanted to portray and what they wanted to do. I'm a
Well, I guess
huge fan of the grizzled
wrestling,
young vets, mate.
yeah, wrestling on television is in itself a skill. Working to that hard camera is a skill. It's going to take a while to get used to that, isn't it?
Yeah,
You're
of
going to watch
course.
back your match and think, well, I shouldn't have done that. You're going to watch back your match and think that looks good. So it's going to take that period to kind of get used to how best to portray yourself through that media. It's
Yeah,
completely different to a live show, which is all many of these guys would have done.
yeah, and like even the guys like the Gallas guys, for instance, who have done a lot of work with ICW up in Scotland. They're kind of, when they stream their shows and film their shows, it's completely different camera placement, and it's like presented in a completely different way. It's in like a nightclub. It's completely different to their, like you say, with the hard camera and that polished TV product. So they're perfectly capable of doing it, and they were at the start and all the way through. But just in terms of how comfortable they were cutting promos, doing the matches, even doing entrances and things like that, it's going to take time, isn't it? And I feel like you look at them, like the grizzled young vets, Gibson and Drake. Before they were a tag team, Gibson was getting a lot of heat as a heel, but I felt like he wasn't quite connecting as a character. But then you've put them together, and they're one of my favorite tag teams to watch in the whole world. I really feel like they've, gone on and shown, and like that tag team match at NXT Cardiff was excellent. I know the main event gets, all the plaudits, but that tag team match was so good.
Yeah, the three-way tag match was excellent.
Mm.
Really, really good.
And I was wondering, are they going to put it on the Welsh guys? Are they going to do it? Or are they going to kind of do what WWE often does on the main roster, which is kind of tease it. And then the hometown people lose. But they made the right decision, I felt. I don't think it's going to be a particularly long run. I feel like they will probably end up putting it on, someone like Gallus, or maybe back on the grizzled young vets. But it was the right call to give it to them on the day, I think.
Yeah, well, I can't see why they'd need to take it off them. They're two exciting young men that do cool stuff with interesting characters and backstories and things like that. So it's not like they've put it on a couple of guys that haven't been built up at all.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Through the TV show, we've learned about Flash Morgan and his kind of mod ways and the things that he does, and we've heard a lot about Mark Andrews and his band. So they've created 3D characters of them both that portrayed them well, so that there's no real reason why they can't run with it for
See
forever.
What happens then. I know that the people within the WWE, they really like the Hunt with the three guys that are like Dave Mastiff and Wild Boar. These are guys which you're very familiar with. Dave Mastiff, I think, has gone from strength to strength on NXT UK. From this very first match to, when you look at the last man standing match with Joe Coffey, the crowd is really into him, and he's really quite over. It was a good match as well. It's brutal. Some nasty landings. And
Dave is an absolute natural. The guy's been fantastic for years. I was so happy when he was on that World of Sport, and they highlighted him there, and now he's in NXT UK. And again, the guy is absolute quality and deserves all the success in the world. He's worked so hard,
Yeah, he's very charismatic, isn't he, as well? He's like a natural in front of the cameras, and just a natural, like larger than life personality, which is what you need. I think my only complaint from NXT UK Cardiff was I felt like the women's match didn't get long enough, and maybe the placement of it on the card. And because Toni Storm has been champion for so long, I kind of wanted it to be a bit more of a big deal, maybe a bit more of a struggle within the match. But, unfortunately, you can't have every match be this long, huge battle. And obviously the main event, when I think 40 minutes or something like that. That was my...
The women's match was right before the main event, yeah?
Yeah.
So you need a little dip.
Yeah.
If Walter and Tyler are going to go out there and absolutely smash it, then you need a little dip. You need the crowd to be energized, ready for Walter and Tyler. It's a long day. I think over there it's 5 hours. That crowd.
Yeah, it's a long time.
It's a 3-hour pay-per-view and some tapings beforehand, and maybe a couple of dark matches, whatever else. So you know what? To scream and to shout for 5 hours is a really tall ask. So you need those peaks and you need them ebbs, and maybe, just maybe, that's what that match was.
Yeah, I think so. I'm a huge fan of for Walter. I gotta be honest, Tyler Bate, I'm a huge fan of his he's an unbelievable wrestler. I haven't always felt connected with his character, but this feud with Walter kind of changed that for me personally. I was always a big fan of Pete Dunne, and I like the three guys together. But Tyler Bate, haven't quite connected with his character always. Like everything he does is impressive. That's obvious, but just this from a character point of view, but the build up to that main event and that the little sort of promo they did on the network, like a 24, 25-minute video, which you actually pointed me towards, really helped me get, because I watched it right before the show, and then to see a match of that quality and the way they booked it, and it's the strength from Tyler Bate, the big guy versus the little guy. It all fell into place very, very nicely.
Yeah, I think that 25-minute documentary was wrestling almost at its very best, in that it built it up like a Rocky fight. You're stacking up the odds against Tyler, and you got Tyler's mum concerned about him. You're talking about how he was power bombed and beaten and injured, and his mate's been battered as well. And that you got this immovable force in Walter that's just smashing people left and right. And then you've got this little boy, essentially, Tyler Bates, saying, like, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to go. I'm going to do this. And there's something very likable about a trier. Somebody that's not going to get someone that's had a whooping, and it's like, nah, I'm going to do this. It was really well done, and the match was fantastic, I thought.
Yeah, I'd like to see the WWE on all their brands use those like kind of 20-minute sort of docu promos a bit more often for their big matches, because I think it builds that sort of the big fight feel. And I feel like, it probably took them a day to film. And I feel like, you could that could be really good selling point for the network, to have these kind of, when you've got a big show, if you've got like these little documentaries about the big matches, is a really good thing. And they WWE with their video packages on the pay-per-views and the YouTube channels, it's just top drawer. They were so good at it.
Well, I suppose it's taken from other sports, isn't it? So, like in boxing, you're not going to have two guys fighting and scrapping for the month leading up to their fight, like you can in wrestling. So you got to build it up in other ways. So you look at their family, you speak about what it means to them, you speak about the personal issues, and you build that up. And I think they did that really, really well.
Yeah, it was very, very good. Walter, he's one of my favourite workers in the whole world. He's just like so clean and crisp in everything he does, and I love the way he uses like those old kind of heel moveset, like really like throwback old school like joint manipulations and power moves, but he's always frowning angrily, and just really added to what Tyler was doing with the way he kind of wrestled. And sometimes, I think we discussed before, because like you see pretty much everyone in WWE or even wrestling generally, everyone does dives, everyone does flips, and everyone does this kind of exciting moves. And sometimes that can take away the specialness of when a guy hits that as his finisher or something like that. But because Walter was all joint manipulation and power moves and suplexes and this kind of thing, it makes everything which Tyler Bate did so much more impressive, because you've got that visual of Tyler's height versus this mountain of a guy, and he struggles early on in the match to try and pick him up.
There's a huge contrast in their aesthetics, and that's purposefully done. Like really, there's no redeeming qualities of Walter. He doesn't do anything that's particularly cool. He doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
He's not having fun out there, which people can get behind. He's literally out there grunting, frowning, chopping, and bombing. And do you know what isn't there? What is there to like? Really, there's very little.
Yeah, very and little. when you consider how hot he was when he first made his debut, in NXT UK, obviously people were so happy to see him, so happy that Walter had finally come to like that sort of WWE umbrella. So for him to turn that around in quite a short space of time, when he turned on Pete Dunne, they brought Imperium together, everything, they've done that in quite a short space of time. And there was no cheers for Walter. Even though he's around the world, is like he's an indie favorite, particularly for like hardcore wrestling fans. So for him to get booed no sort of mixed cheers and boos. It was just boos. It says a lot about his work. And I respect that massively, because sometimes I feel like when I watch wrestling, from around the world, all different companies, the heels kind of want to be like the cool heels, which people cheer. But I don't want to really see that. I want to see heels like Tommaso Ciampa and Walter, and who everybody hates, where you feel like the fans are on the brink of throwing their paper cups into the ring, because the heels have like just got this tremendous amount of heat around them, and it reminds me of growing up with watching wrestling.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I suppose the one redeeming feature is that entrance. That entrance is cool as. It's so simple with the white background and the silhouette.
Yeah.
And the music. Everybody sings along to the music, but then
that's it. Yeah.
It
doesn't last for long. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about I ask everyone, let's be fair, about The Fiend and Bray Wyatt. Obviously, last time we spoke, I think we hadn't seen The Fiend yet. I think it was more we'd just seen this kind of Firefly Funhouses segments. Obviously, that's gone on now. You have the SummerSlam match with Finn Balor, and Finn Balor's disappeared for a bit. What do you think of The Fiend? Did you watch SummerSlam and The Fiend's entrance?
I saw The Fiend. I thought it was really cool. I like the remix of Bray Wyatt's music and the Bray Wyatt head as the lantern. Aesthetically, it's terrifying. It really is. So we got a 4-year-old in the house. We thought not really appropriate for him.
Yeah,
we won't let him watch that. And I guess it's more of that kind of envelope pushing, isn't it? So where they've done the kind of PG thing for so long, they're pushing that envelope just a little bit, and I think that makes it interesting because it means more can happen. Like like The Fiend, what's he gonna do? He's just come out with a decapitated head with a light in it. So what else is possible? But I think it's a really, really interesting character. I think it's open to lots of different angles, and I think they're onto something, and they could make an awful lot of money from it.
Oh yeah, actually, I read that the SummerSlam weekend, his was the highest selling merch. So when you think he hadn't been on, other than the Firefly Funhouse segment and a couple of appearances, he'd been off TV for over a year. So then to come back at like the first pay-per-view he's at and outsell your Roman Reigns or your John Cena's not there at the moment, but your Finn Balor's, the people who were the favourites with the kids and the fans, to outsell them at one of the big 4-5 shows says a lot about the interest in the character. I think I've watched Raw this morning from last night, and obviously with Stone Cold being there, and the Fiend had attacked like Mick Foley and Kurt Angle. I think everyone was expecting the Fiend to turn up, and I like that he didn't turn up and attack Steve Austin. But what they did is later in the show, they did a Firefly Funhouse segment. He made reference to Steve Austin and kind of basically explained it and said, he's done nothing wrong, sort of thing. But then he kind of made a load of cryptic hints about The Undertaker, who's on SmackDown tomorrow, and saying, I think he referred to like their feud before, but really, really cryptically, like you had to be aware of what happened before and aware of like these numbers. And he like on a clock, he put the 11/19, which is the date The Undertaker made his debut at Survivor Series and stuff like that. So it's kind of, what I like from my wrestling, particularly if I'm watching like Raw or SmackDown, is I don't want my intelligence insulted too much. I don't need everything explained to me. I'd rather things be cryptic sometimes. I'd rather have to like worry or not worry, work out what something means, or I'd like to be rewarded for my long-term viewing by referring to old storylines or feuds, because it keeps your interest, doesn't it? You know, the most successful TV shows are the ones which are all cryptic, and you kind of can't wait for the next episode to see what happens.
I guess what Bray Wyatt's doing really well is he is interested in that smarter fan. You know, he's creating an in-group, you know, so you guys can say to each other, oh, did you see that? Oh, that meant this, that meant that. And all of a sudden, you guys are a distinct group that are speaking in your own little language, that are talking about storylines slightly differently to the way they're aired. You've got a slightly deeper understanding, and suddenly you think, to show that I'm part of this group, I'm going to spend 30 notes on a Fiend shirt.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. It's very clever. And going back to like what we were saying about like social media and internet, is he's much more active on social media. Whereas because he's got kind of like this split personality gimmick, all his social media posts are as the kind of like children's TV host, and it's like he's apologizing to Mick Foley and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And then he'll make a reference to just Stone Cold Steve Austin last week, but not like I'm going to be there, just like a passing kind of reference to a rattlesnake. So people are thinking then, is he going to turn up? Is he going to turn up? He didn't turn up. And then now, of course, everyone's thinking, is he going to turn up? And you know what that does? Is those people who are wondering if he's going to turn up, they might have skipped, you know, maybe they would have skipped SmackDown tonight because they had other things on or they were doing something. But because they want to know if he's going to turn up, they're going to make sure they watch it. And those little characters, those little creative things can, you know, they can be the difference between someone making time to watch a show, you know, because let's be honest, wrestling shows, Raw's 3 hours, SmackDown's 2 hours. There's quite a lot of time for people to, you know, to spend out of their week or their night. So anything which they can get to, you know, attract viewers is obviously a positive.
Well, that's what a promo is, isn't it? It's a promotional video.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's easy to forget that because you think about it just as a promo of its own thing, you know. It's he's talking, he's doing a promo. But yeah, really, a promo should be promoting something, building to something. Whether it's a jab or a hook, it should be moving us towards a direction, and generally that direction is interest in something or buying something or, you know, watching something. And yeah, I think that's something that Bray does really well. So the Firefly Funhouse, everybody was so intrigued. Where is this going? How is this guy going to be on television with his smiley face and his muscle man dance? And how is this going to unfold? And nobody knew. And the fact that you don't know means you need to watch more because you're interested, because it's entertaining for those 3-4 minutes, you know? And then suddenly
absolutely.
It's the Fiend, and he's terrifying, and he's smashing people up, and then he's mandible clawing legends, and then he's writing about clues of who he might get, who he might not get, why he didn't get someone, you know? And that's building interest, and it's cool. Bray Wyatt does pro wrestling really, really well.
Yeah, he's a clever, creative guy, and you can tell he gets it. He gets the new style of using the internet and social media and videos and effects and stuff like this. But he also gets the character side of it and the old school promos and wrestling. So he's got that mix, which I think if you can get that mix and you can get people caring, that's 90% of the battle, isn't it? It's you as a wrestler, you want people to care. You want people to care about your matches, your character. And I do feel that sometimes in WWE, because there's such a big company, that it can feel like sometimes they lose a bit of the character side of it. And I don't mean that they haven't got characters. I mean that, for instance, we'll use Bray Wyatt as an example again. He knows his character inside out. He knows his character's motivations. He knows his character, why he's got the Fiend, why he's got this split personality, which I sometimes think is like a lost art of characters who know their character's motivations and why is this character doing this? Why is he after this? Why is he attacking this? Why does this matter to him? And I feel like they're important traits because if this ex wrestler doesn't care about his character, then why should I as a viewer?
Yeah, well, let's face it, right? If you're watching a television show, right, you're investing in those characters, and you are building up an internal schema of who all those characters are, right? So you're thinking, oh, well, this is what Bray Wyatt's all about. And if he does something that's against your internal schema, if he's doing something that's against your vision of who he is, then he'd better explain it. Else, all of a sudden, any buy-in that they had, you've lost.
Yeah,
You know, it was
absolutely.
like
Yeah,
everybody had an idea of who Stone Cold Steve Austin was, right? And everything Stone Cold Steve Austin did is stuff that Stone Cold Steve Austin would do right up until he sided with Vince McMahon. But
yeah,
then they explained it, and all of a sudden you thought, you jackass, Stone Cold,
yeah.
sold us
Yeah, no,
all
spot
out
on.
for a title. But
Spot
it
on.
meant the title meant so much more. Stone Cold Steve Austin would turn on all of his values for that title, everything that's ever been important to him for that title, you know, and that
Yeah,
was the switch, and the switch was done well.
yeah, you're spot on with that. And I think that, like I said, I think sometimes it feels like because it's such a big company that maybe that stuff can be lost. But then I also think that you can't put all that on the company, and that it's up to the individual wrestlers to, to go away and think about that. And obviously they've got to work with a script or what they're told to say within their promos. But that doesn't mean that you can't say it and evoke emotions which your character would do rather than just reading a script. So, like, so for instance, if Kade Callous is there and you say they give you your script or whatever for your promo, you're not going to go away and just memorize the lines and then just say them. You're going to behave and say them in the way that Kade Callous would do. Because you still want to have both sides of it. You've got the content of what needs to be said, but you need it to come from the character. If that makes
Yeah, and
sense.
to be honest, I'd like to think that those scripts are more a kind of
Guidance.
a blue, you know, like an idea, and then you put the meat on the bones. You know, this is what we want to get out of it. This is an idea of a script, and then you kind of,
Yeah.
you know, so long as you go into the same place, so it's, you know, you hate the Big Show, you're annoyed that the Big Show has stolen your apples, you know.
Yeah, and I think with WWE, the one thing that they have sort of gone away from over the years, so like when Stone Cold and The Rock and that were there, they would give the wrestlers like bullet points what you need to get into your promo, and then they can just go and do their thing as long as they hit those bullet points. But I think since then, over the years, like from the bit I've read and the people I've spoken to, it seems like they do now for Raw and SmackDown at least, like an actual script of the majority of the wrestlers have got to say it word for word, which I think can be a problem with then connecting with your audience and your character because they might say something and that might not be the way that Sasha Banks the character would say something. She would say it in a different way. But
But then, do you not think that all TV shows do that?
yeah, of course.
We're
And
we're essentially actors in a play,
yeah,
and you can't go around changing Shakespeare. You've just got to
no,
make sure that it's true to the character that you're portraying.
yeah, yeah, I guess it's up to the individuals then, isn't it, to be able to adapt whatever the script is to their character. Um, I think as well, it's like, there's not everyone is Stone Cold and The Rock who can, like, you could give The Rock a microphone and he could go and talk for 20 minutes, entertain everyone, and everyone would be glued to it. whereas maybe some other people would need that bit of, guidance or bullet points or a script. You can't expect everyone to just be able to do that. It's not as easy, I guess, as The Rock makes it look.
Let's face it, The Rock can go out there and talk about eating pie for 20 minutes.
Yeah, everyone's glued to it.
Everybody loves it.
Oh, yeah, they absolutely do. So what's next for Kade Callous? What you got coming up?
So I wanna get my neck back in working order. I'm gonna head down to the Dragon Pro training, the Dragon Pro school, Dragon Pro Academy, which is more than likely the best school, maybe in Britain, maybe in Europe. The guys down there do a fantastic job. And yeah, just kind of keep fresh, keep thinking wrestling, keep watching wrestling, and we'll see where it goes. Keep creating content, try and be interesting, and hopefully gain more and more followers, get a bit of a buzz, and see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's the battle, isn't it? It's getting your name out there, getting people to be interested and see like video clips or matches and be like, oh, he was interesting, he was a good character. I'm gonna go and look at his social media, or I'm gonna Google him, or I'm gonna do whatever it may be. That's the battle, I suppose, especially in this day and age. So if at the moment then you've got no kind of shows booked or anything over the next few weeks, you're going to get your neck sorted first.
Yeah, no. So for the next month or so, I'm not on anything. So Welsh wrestling, I've got a bunch of shows, but I won't be doing them. Like I say, this neck's just not right at the moment, and whenever I've wrestled again, it's felt kind of better. Afterwards, it's felt not better. So it's just waiting for this muscle, this pulled muscle, this strained muscle to kind of heal and getting back at it. Because Welsh wrestling, the welshwrestling.com, people can check out to see live events all around Wales. Possibly the best touring wrestling show in Britain, if not the world, bar WWE. And yeah, they do great standalone shows similar to the circus. They come into town, everyone's entertained, and everybody goes home. So yeah, maybe in a month's time, I'll be back with Welsh wrestling 4, 5, 6 times a month. But we'll see what else the future brings.
Yeah, I can say myself that a night of Welsh wrestling is a very good time. It's very entertaining, some really good wrestling, and it's a good show. My kids loved it. Tell the people where they can find you on social media and where they can find your t-shirts.
Okay, so you can check out at Kade Callous, that's KadeCallous on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. If you're interested in a Kade Callous shirt, it's kadecallous.bigcartel.com, but you'll be able to see that link across all of the social media. Please use the hashtag KadeArmy if you've enjoyed this podcast and maybe you feel that, yeah, you're one of my guys. And yeah, just support British wrestling. Follow all the British wrestlers you can. Go to as many live shows as you can, because the more people are watching, the more opportunities there are for guys, and the better things like NXT UK will be because of that engagement.
Absolutely. And what was I going to say then? The t-shirt that you've got is sweet. I really like it, and I plan to get one myself. If I can get the missus to loosen the purse strings,
Get around to it.
definitely get one. Yeah, I will. I really like them. They're really nice.
Oh,
so you guys can follow us at ACEcast_nation on Twitter, facebook.com/ACEcastNation. And like I said at the start, youtube.com/AcePodcastNation for the video versions. Audio versions are available for download at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and a load of other podcast sites,
Yeah,
apps, and
you've
catches.
got to get on the conspiracy podcast. They're my friend when I'm doing cardio. Get on it. Get on it.
The last three. So we put the third part of 3 parts on MK Ultra come out yesterday. They were a lot of fun to kind of delve into, but it was like I started off. We were just going to do one show, and then we did one, and we were halfway through, and we're like, oh, we're gonna have to do a second part of this, and then we extended it into 3 parts on MK Ultra, and they were really fun shows and interesting to discuss.
I'll get them on the old phone for when I'm on the treadmill. You are my friend on the treadmill, mate.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. And guys, we've got loads of shows and guests coming up as well. I had former Cage Warriors featherweight champion of the world, Danny Batten, on for an unscripted and uncensored show, which will be out soon. We've had Rodri Giggs, Lee Remedios, former British MMA champion. We've had loads and loads of shows. We've got a weekly show with Andy Campbell, former Premier League footballer, every Wednesday, where we look at the championship results and fixtures from the weekend before. Loads of shows, loads of series on all different subjects. So come join us, have a listen, have a watch. Tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, tell us who we should talk to, and spread the word, as it were. Thank you, Kade, for coming on, mate.
Nice one.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Kade me.
Yeah.